Welcome to this 700 Club. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a bold prediction I'm going to make during this program. I think it's going to be truthful, but I think you want to stay around and find out what it's going to be. A bold prediction on the 700 Club. Well, now in the news, the most wanted man in the world, ISIS leading Abu al-Baghdadi, hunted down and killed in a daring raid by U.S. Special Forces. Who helped the U.S. bring down this monster, and what will the Islamic terrorist group do now? Chris Mitchell has the details on this gripping story.
President Trump said the operation led by Delta Force was flawless.
U.S. Special Operations Forces executed a dangerous and daring nighttime raid in northwestern Syria and accomplished their mission in grand style.
He said Baghdadi died like a dog.
The thug who tried so hard to intimidate others spent his last moments in utter fear, in total panic and dread, terrified of the American forces bearing down on him.
The Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, the main allies of the U.S. since 2015 in the battle against ISIS, said they provided effective intelligence in tracking down Baghdadi, while one U.S. official said Turkey did not help in any way. In July 2014, al-Baghdadi announced an Islamic caliphate and declared himself the caliph, the leader of the Muslim world. His caliphate swept across Syria and Iraq, changed the face of the Middle East, and left behind a legacy of some of the most horrific murders ever seen, many of them broadcast to the world via social media. At one time, his caliphate reached the size of Great Britain and kept millions under the heel of its barbaric Sharia law. His infamous legacy scarred the lives of millions who either fled, were killed, or who came under the sway of his hate-filled messages.
Well, unfortunately, I think, there's a whole area across Iraq and Syria that has had its kind of heart ripped out. And I don't think that the Middle East will be able to fully get that back.
Baghdadi's followers, many of them drawn from Western countries, especially targeted Christians and slaughtered religious minorities like Yazidis and Muslims who didn't follow his brand of Islam. His followers murdered 20 Egyptian Christians on a Libyan beach, Western journalists like James Foley, and thousands more. CBN News documented some of his trail of destruction, from the devastated city of Mosul to Yazidi mass graves and the ruins of their main city, Sinjar, and met some of the millions who became refugees. Many still remain in those camps. While his physical caliphate ended earlier this year in the eastern corner of Syria, the question remains, what's next for the Islamic terrorist group?
There will be a new form of ISIS or al-Qaeda that will come along, because I think there is a kind of unresolved question in terms of Sunni jihadist extremist movements throughout the world, whether it's in Nigeria or all the way to the Philippines, where, there is unfortunately this extremism that appeals to people.
The question also remains, what happens to the victims of Baghdadi?
Okay, Baghdadi's dead, but we should be helping the victims, the refugees, the people that still have post-traumatic stress from what they suffered over these years, the rape victims. I mean, all those people are still among us. So we should devote our tools to helping the living and not just care about the dead.
Well, I think one of the things ought to be is to execute those Brits and others who were wearing masks and beheading people on camera. A lot of them, or a number of them anyhow, had British accents in what they were saying. I think the free nations need to hunt them down and bring them to justice. Ephraim Graham has more of our top stories from the CBN newsroom. Here's Ephraim.
Pat, the president and many Republicans charge the House impeachment inquiry is improper. They believe the full House should vote to approve the inquiry, and the hearing should be held in public, not behind closed doors. Friday, Senator Lindsey Graham introduced a resolution condemning the inquiry, which all but 3 Senate Republicans are co-sponsoring.
The purpose of the resolution is to let the House know that the process you're engaging in regarding the attempted impeachment of President Trump is out of bounds. It's inconsistent with due process as we know it. It's a Star Chamber type inquiry, and it's a substantial deviation from what the House has done in the past regarding impeachment of other presidents.
It takes 67 votes in the Senate to remove a president from office. Democrats hold 45 Senate seats, plus 2 independents who caucus with them. That means they'd need 20 Republicans to join them in voting to convict. With at least 50 Senate Republicans supporting Senator Graham's condemnation of the impeachment inquiry, the numbers just don't add up for the Democrats. Pat?
Thanks. Here's my bold prediction, ladies and gentlemen. The House will not vote impeachment. There will be no impeachment. They don't have the courage to do it. If they go ahead and vote this thing, they will face an angry electorate who will say, you wasted your time on what was essentially a chimera. You know you couldn't win. You know that the Republicans in the Senate are not going to defect from the sitting president. You know that they will not vote to impeach. And if all you do is waste your time with this nonsense, we don't want you in office. And my prediction is, A, they will not have the courage to sit there and have a vote. And if they do, the Democrats will lose up to 40 to 45 seats in the House. It will be a slaughter. And I think those Democrats want to hold on to their seats, and there is no way that there'll be a majority vote in the United States House of Representatives to bring forth a bill of impeachment, which then go to the Senate and so forth. And they know it will fail. They know that the Republicans are not going to defect. And to spend all that time and all that effort and all that money on something that is nothing but an illusion, how can they face the electorate with all the problems that Congress needs to be involved in? And my prediction is that it isn't going to happen. They will not have a vote. There will be no impeachment, and we'll go forward to the election. And at that point, then that's something else. But
I think that what's just happened over the weekend will have great impact on people.
It will have, but even if that was a great move, but even if there hadn't been that, there's still, this impeachment would have been, as Lindsey Graham said, it's nothing but a publicity stunt. I think the American people are sick of it, and it's time, if you've got the guts to do it, well, vote. And if you don't...
Publicly.
Publicly, and keep quiet.
Really.
But they've got to be on record, and Nancy Pelosi has been trying to shield them from any kind of a vote all these months. There will not be an impeachment, trust me. Ephraim.
Pat, the European Union granted the United Kingdom a 3-month delay for Brexit. The 27-nation body agreed to give the UK until January 31st, 2020. The Prime Minister's office blamed the delay on Parliament. Boris Johnson worked out a new deal with the EU to leave by October 31st deadline. But a vote by Parliament derailed the timetable. Now Johnson wants to call a general election to get a Parliament that will back his plan. A statewide emergency in California. High winds are fueling ravenous wildfires. Nearly 200,000 people are under mandatory evacuation, and more than 2 million are without power. Gary Lane has more on the flames that are devouring parts of the Golden State.
Merciless winds of up to 100 miles per hour fanned wildfire flames in Northern California. The worst hit, Sonoma County near Santa Rosa, a city of 175,000 people devastated by a fire just 2 years ago. That blaze caused $1.7 billion in damaged homes and property. 22 people lost their lives. This time, residents aren't taking any chances. Heating warnings and a mandatory evacuation affecting some 200,000 people.
This time I wasn't going to stay around. I'm responsible for my pets, and I wasn't going to subject all of us to burning up.
Many of the evacuees headed to the pet-friendly Sonoma County Fairground. Governor Gavin Newsom visited one evacuation center in Petaluma on Sunday.
Half the folks that are in this shelter were evacuated in 2017. Just met a young woman who lost her home 2 years ago in Coffey Park, had just rebuilt it, and now is evacuated yet again.
The biggest concern in the area now? That relentless winds would cause the fire to jump the 101 freeway to the west side, an area that hasn't experienced a wildfire in more than 80 years.
That area hasn't seen any fire history since the 1940s. So the fuels in that area are extremely dense, they're extremely old and decadent, and they're extremely dry.
So far, wildfires have consumed at least 55,000 acres of land and nearly 100 buildings in Sonoma County. Embers from the Kincaid fire engulfed the 150-year-old Soda Rock winery. Firefighters say high wind conditions are challenging.
We're prepping this area right now for structure defense in the event that the fire does make a run with a wind-driven event towards this subdivision.
And more hardship ahead. Power has already been cut to 2.3 million, but more Californians could be sitting in the dark this week. Pacific Gas and Electric and other companies say they may cut power to another 500,000 customers to help prevent more fires from igniting. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Pray those winds slow down. Pat?
Well, some are saying, is this the new normal? Is this what it's going to be like? What a horrible concept. What a terrible thing. But when you've got winds between 90 and 100 miles an hour, it's hurricane-style winds, and it's so easy for those sparks to blow. It isn't like you can build a fire line and hope that it's contained and that it'll jump now. And all I can say is that we need to pray for our friends in California, because this is a terrible time they're going through. And if this becomes the new normal, California will be hollowed out. People will just be leaving in droves.
Yeah. And the wind is supposed to pick up again tonight.
Oh, yeah, Mike. Well,
we pray.
Yeah, okay.